How you doing, everyone? My name is Ryan. This is Ade. Welcome to another edition of Box Talk. Today, we're looking at boxing versus UFC. People are saying UFC is better than boxing. Boxing is better than UFC. Do they match? Do they fit in the same category? Are they the same sport? Ade, what do you think?
First of all, welcome everyone to Box Talk. Here we go again. It's a tough one. There's been comparisons between the two because they're both striking sports, and I think, to be fair, boxing never really had that competition. I mean, they probably had a bit of karate in the 80s and kickboxing in the 90s, but they never had someone to sustainably be there. And with UFC, it looks like it's going to be there literally forever.
Yeah.
I don't know, it's a tough one.
It's funny you said there's a lot of combat sports out there. Like I said, you have karate, you got Muay Thai, you got a lot of things from back in the day, even the real wrestling, Olympic style wrestling. But nothing was never really nationally televised or had a ranking system or something that would actually compete with boxing. Boxing was in a sense, its own standalone combat sport for everyone. Yeah. And then you got someone else coming in, which is relatively new in terms of years, but it's very powerful.
Massively powerful. I mean, as you say, UFC's probably only be really going, I think 13 years, but in terms of when Dana White and the Fertitta brothers took over, we're talking 9-10 years now. Yeah. They're doing their anniversary coming up. The 20-year anniversary, I think, is coming up as well.
It's been came out about 1990, 91.
Yeah, but in terms of
the brothers took over years.
Yeah. So, and not only that, but they're making some of their fighters into name stars.
Marquee stars.
Stars.
Couple of them making film. I saw Rampage Liddell in Kick-Ass 2. Expendables,
Couture, Rampage, obviously the A-Team, Ronda Rousey, they're talking about her as well.
New Expendables as well.
Exactly. So it's not only that they're now becoming sort of just fighting stars, they're actually now becoming TV personalities as well. And that's something that boxing's probably struggling with.
Yeah, they have. A lot of boxers always wanted to cross over. I mean, besides Ali, who made a few films in the 70s about himself and or based on his life, there's not many stars, marquee boxing stars, that actually made a crossover into TV. The thing about boxing and UFC, which I think is a big misconception, is that UFC always say that, well, let's get it right, not UFC, mixed martial arts always say that they're always different from boxing. Boxing is an old man's audience, UFC is a young man's audience. Boxing guys say UFC doesn't have the same audience. Let's get it right. I think it's the same audience. Yeah. If you like combat sports, if you like seeing controlled violence in a control of rules and regulations, you'll find admirable things in both sports. I can understand why people say they don't like the ground game because it looks a little funny. I can understand why people say, why is boxing so boring because they're only standing up. You look at both sides of it, but the demographics and the audience is exactly the same, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. If you like boxing, you're gonna probably gravitate towards sort of mixed martial arts a bit. I think the thing that helps UFC, and it's funny because we said boxing versus UFC. UFC isn't obviously the brand. UFC is
the marquee
brand, exactly. The thing that helps UFC is that it's owned by one person. So really and truly, Fertitta brothers run it, but Dana White really is the controller of that brand. And that's the thing we don't get in boxing. In the boxing, all the fights that we want to happen don't happen because there's so many different promotional stables and they don't want their fights to fight each other. In UFC, if Dana White wants to see the fight, that fight's happening. There's no two ways about it. So we've had, in a sense, we've kind of been given the super fights that we want from UFC that we haven't been given from boxing.
See, the problem is, though, when you think about Dana White, he's done some good fights, he's also done bad things as well, where his attitude and his favoritism of certain fighters and certain things clearly shows. If you watch any of his video blogs or any of his interviews, you can tell he has his favorites he's done, and he picks and chooses who gets what spot and what doesn't get other spots. And this is where boxing is different, where boxing in general is an open sport. Yes, it has problems. Yes, they have TV coverage that don't agree with each other. You have promoters that don't agree with each other. But, you have individuality. I mean, with the UFC, the fighters are scared to lose their jobs or say anything and get the promoter because they feel they have nowhere else to go. Boxing is an open sport.
I'm gonna agree and I'm gonna disagree slightly with you. And the reason I'm gonna disagree is this. Boxing, Dana White clearly says, and he comes out in all his blogs and all his interviews and says it, it's a short window of opportunity in UFC. There's that short window and you've got to literally do whatever you can do in that short window to make as much money as possible. Boxing seems to be this massive window of opportunity where I think guys that should have been retired 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago are taking money away from the guys that are up and coming. Mosley should have retired 5, 6 fights ago. Mosley's still fighting, and that for me takes away an opportunity for a young kid to come and take the money in a fight.
But here's my question with the UFC. Whereas, you're saying it's a short period of time, so not a lot of time to make your name and everything. But where's the money going? UFC are doing these huge pay-per-views all the time, weekly, monthly, all the time, all these shows, and their fighter pay are so far ahead from the current combat sports. Now, I'm not saying everyone's going to make 41 million like Mayweather. I'm just saying, though, you got their main eventers, some of them are getting 300,000 a fight, 400,000, and the guy on the other side is getting 50,000. You've got people in the same card and the premium, and they're not saying, you've got to go for this, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. You're forcing people into a position where they're fighting, but they're not getting paid for their fights.
It happens in every sport. I mean, no matter what you say, I mean, me and you both touched on this a couple of months back when we talked about Lamont Peterson, who at the time was the IBF light welterweight champion. He had a fight and he made
Kendall Holt.
against Kendall, and he made £42,000.
Dollars.
So, yeah, exactly. $42,000. So we're talking £30,000. So let's be honest. He pays his manager, he pays his cornerman, he pays his promotional stable. He probably walks away with $10,000.
Okay. That's
world champion.
But that's one marquee fighter.
That's a world champion.
But you're talking about a UFC card with 10 fights on the card, with 2 fighters each card, so that's 20 people, and the whole card paycheck is mostly barely over £1 million. When UFC is selling that fight to everyone, I don't know how much it costs in America, $50, $60 on HD. I mean, they're kicking it.
It goes both ways. I think there's positives and there's negatives for both sports. The way I see it, there's no world champion at UFC is taking home $10,000. That's a fact. There's no way a UFC champion is taking home them kind of pennies. It's just not happening. But at the same time, you're right. I think what people have got to realise is boxing's been going on for 150 years and UFC's been going 20 years. It's now only become marquee in the last 10. You can't compare the two sports. The only thing you can compare them to is that they're both striking sports. In terms of, if you really want to compare a sport to UFC, you've probably got to compare it to something like Major League Soccer. Look at what Major League Soccer footballers earn, because that's kind of new, and compare it to UFC, and I think you'll get more similarities. I think comparing it to boxing in terms of fighters' pay is a bit unfair.
I think, again, I'm a huge boxing fan. Boxing is my number one sport. There's only one sport to me, boxing. But I do watch a little UFC and I do enjoy it. I do think the audience matches. I do think they do share little bits, The only thing boxing can give UFC is that, what I dislike with boxing is that if you lose, they throw you under the bus. They try to put you away and say you're this and that and blah, blah. UFC do give their fighters more opportunity if your loss doesn't count. Where if you look at the UFC's Hall of Fame, one of their top fighters, Randy Couture, maybe has like 8 or 9 losses. And it's not held as a criticism or as a downfall. If you had a marquee boxer who had 9 losses right now, they say it's time to go home.
No, that's a very good point.
That's the only thing boxing
they do seem, boxing, you're right, you get a loss and that's it for boxing. Which is why so many of these fighters got on these stupid O records, haven't fought no one because they're so scared of getting one loss. We also happened to Nassim Hamed. One loss, and I think he could have carried on one loss and it kind of ended his career.
One loss to a Hall of Famer.
Can you imagine if Mayweather was to lose it once, what it would do?
Let's go back, and I mentioned this before in another video. Look at Roy Jones. Roy Jones was the king of boxing, undisputed. He was going to do everything and beat Sugar Ray Robinson until he lost one fight to Tarver, and then he was worth nothing. Yeah. You know, like they were calling him to retire after one knockout loss.
But one thing about UFC as well, we can go back on it again. You've got to be open and say they're giving us the fights we want. That boxing isn't. Boxing's slowly becoming that way again. I think we are slowly but surely getting the fights we want. But in terms of the master fights that we've missed out on, Pacquiao Mayweather being the main one, we're not getting the fights we want still. I don't think we're still
I think UFC, mixed martial arts has got a lot to learn from boxing in the way they carry the sport and the way they do certain things. And I think boxing is way ahead than mixed martial arts, way ahead of them in all aspects. What I will say, is that for boxing to adapt and help itself, it's got to move with the times. When I say move with the times, you've got to let things be how they're going to be. Yeah, when I say that, people are going to dispute, they're going to fight, but let the fight happen. Don't let managers, promoters, personal issues with other promoters and managers stop fights from going on. Yeah.
The way
any business, any company, at your workplace, you're a manager, I was a business line manager. It just happens. No matter where you go, people would have disruptions, but you still make money. In boxing, we don't do that.
Yeah, because you know why we don't do it in boxing? Because there ain't that much money in boxing. People might say there's about 4 or 5 people in the top of boxing that are absolutely taking a chunk of people. There's a reason why someone could win 8 fights and say, I want to fight Mayweather next. Not because he can beat Mayweather, because he knows fighting Mayweather means $1 million check. I want to fight Vitaly Klitschko next. He only had 7 heavyweight fights. Yeah, but I think I can beat him. Why? Because, it's a case where now people are calling people out, not because they want their titles, but because they want their money. Because I think the top earners, I think we said it in a video earlier, 99% of the money is made by 1% of the top fighters. Yeah. And that's the problem. And I think in UFC, yes, they don't get paid big money. We know that, they don't. But I think it's spread a bit more evenly between some of the fighters. And I think whereas boxing, it's still, unfortunately, the big guys are taking so much money. Austin Trout was a great example. I remember I watched an All Access video with Miguel Cotto in the Austin Trout house. Remember people, Austin Trout before Miguel Cotto fight was a world champion. His house was like a council flat in London. It was unbelievable for a world champion compared to fighting Cotto around about 8 houses in Puerto Rico. It's a shame.
Yeah. I also want to say one thing, you know, like I said, I appreciate both sports. I think, like I said, UFC's got a lot to catch up and a lot to learn and do a lot of things. Like I said, I think as fans, we should embrace all sports and look at, if you're a combat fan, enjoy it, appreciate it. They are two separate sports, they're two separate entities. One's not better than the other, one's not trying to overtake the other. We're not fighting each other in the ring. It's two different sports. You can watch and enjoy them both. But, you know, you have your favourites.
And that's a good note to end. So guys, what do you think? Leave your comments below. UFC versus boxing, is one better than the other? I mean, is boxing scared that UFC's taken some of its viewership away? What do you think? Leave your comments below or email us at
BoxTalk@hotmail.co.uk. And you know we're on Twitter and Facebook.
Guys, thanks for tuning in for another edition of BoxTalk. Thank you.